So after a little while in the arcades, Ehrgeiz made its way to the PlayStation, and this might be one of the most bizarre, unexpected Final Fantasy crossovers out there. On the surface, 3D arena fighter with guest characters like Cloud Strife thrown into the mix. But that's only half the story, because tucked away inside is a secondary mode. Brand new quest, the Forsaken Dungeon. This transforms Ehrgeiz into something far more ambitious than it has any right to be. It's a procedurally generated dungeon crawler pulling in roguelike ideas, survival mechanics, a decent progression system, and arguably, for many it becomes the real reason to play. You're descending floor by floor, fighting through increasingly dangerous enemies, raptors, bears, dragons, and even killer penguins. Ehrgeiz is one of those often overlooked weird late 90s games from a time when everyone was experimenting with just about everything in 3D. It's also not an easy one to track down. It isn't available on any digital stores, it's getting expensive on eBay, and even back in the day it wasn't exactly easy to find in your local video game stores. But as a young Final Fantasy VII fan, I managed to get my hands on it, and it was pretty fun, but not entirely what I was expecting. Basically, 50 years ago, an artifact known as the Ehrgeiz was discovered in some ancient ruins. This artifact becomes the prize for the Ehrgeiz Championship Tournament, which will determine the world's greatest fighter. At the same time, two excavators, Koji Masuda and Claire Andrews, discover a forsaken dungeon in the search for the secrets of immortality. Turns out the Ehrgeiz artifact holds the key to unlocking the dungeon's final door. These two stories form the backbone of the game, the fighting tournament on one side and the RPG dungeon crawl on the other. That's pretty cool, but where does Final Fantasy VII come into this? Well, it doesn't really. Cloud and Tifa act as guardians leading into the final encounter in arcade mode. There's just 6 guest characters in the fighting game side, which is pretty awesome. And yeah, I'll admit, the only reason I ever gave this game a shot was because it had Final Fantasy attached to it. Before I really get into the first part of Ehrgeiz, if you love RPGs, consider subscribing to Bytes or giving the video a like. I'm a bit of an indie game developer who covers RPGs, and I'm replaying the whole Final Fantasy series while ranking them. Thank you. So I'll start with the fighting game and the Final Fantasy side of things, then we'll look at the RPG side. So there are 17 playable fighters in total, with 6 unlocked by playing through arcade mode with other characters, and yeah, this roster is wild. You got Yoko, who fights with a bladed yo-yo. Wolf Girl Joe, who can transform into a wolf. God Hand with his gun arm. And Han, who has an artificial leg with built-in missile launcher. The concepts here are genuinely cool. There's some interesting lore behind these characters, mostly in the game's manual. But with only one game, these characters quickly faded to black. They never really got the chance to grow or develop like they do in something like Tekken or Street Fighter. But yeah, we've got the Final Fantasy corner propping the game. We've got Cloud, Tifa, Sephiroth, Yuffie, Vincent and Zack. A pretty awesome and varied selection of fighters. And this isn't your typical fighting game locked to a horizontal plane. I'd describe this as a 3D arena brawler with some fighting game DNA. It can fully move in all directions, and most stages even have vertical elements to them like platforms that, if anything, make fights more annoying. Combos are pretty straightforward, which makes the game really accessible. That said, the most complex inputs are the 360 grab specials. Look, I'm not the best, this is an RPG channel, and I really struggle pulling these off consistently. You'll need to guard, rotate a full circle on the D-pad, and hit high and low attack at the same time. Sounds simple, but the timing is super tight. Every character has a resource bar that you can spend on special moves, and in some cases spend to fire projectiles, which is a nice touch and adds a bit of variety to how each fighter plays. Some characters do share similar movesets, but overall there's enough variety to keep things interesting. Characters like Cloud, Zack and Sephiroth can even draw their swords and burn through their resources to go all out chopping people up, which is pretty sick as hell. It plays fairly good for early 3D with the PlayStation. Sometimes you end up locked in a combo and facing the wrong direction, but when you guard by holding R2, you also lock onto enemies, which does help alleviate some of the directional awkwardness. The main meat of the fighting game side is arcade mode. You battle your way through 10 stages. If you're quick enough, you'll unlock a Final Fantasy themed alternative path. It's a Moogle gate akin to the Gold Source's entrance, and this secret path unlocks 2 matches with Cloud and Tifa. I had fun just blasting through arcade mode again with all the characters, and unlocking new characters along the way feels pretty rewarding and keeps it fresh. Beating arcade mode with the main default characters unlocks a short cinematic. Sometimes you can get a good or bad ending depending on if you beat the credit boss, but usually a goofy little clip of what these characters are up to after the tournament. They're a bit hit and miss, like an Ober is just eating noodle balls over and over in an endless loop till you press the start button. While default Final Fantasy characters gets you a trailer for Final Fantasy VII. So if you're a big fan of Final Fantasy VII, you're going to pick up on loads of fan service here and finer details, really awesome stuff. You've got faithful alternative costumes and callbacks to limit breaks. I love this kind of attention to detail. Like when Vincent charges up his gun, you see blurs of his limit breaks where he transforms into different monsters. Across the board, there's loads of special move limit breaks from 7, like Omni Slash and Meteor Rain. Sephiroth's 360 grab reminds me of how he impales and lifts up Cloud with his sword. Yuffie can do a quick little series of punches, just like 7. There's tons more to pick up on. Maybe I could do an entire video just on these references and callbacks. My favourite stage has to be Tifa's Underground. It features an upbeat fighting-style remix of the Final Fantasy VII Prelude, and it was incredibly nostalgic. Coming back to Ehrgeiz and hearing that again was easily one of my favourite moments. Because it's Final Fantasy, there's also a handful of minigames, and yeah, they're pretty hit or miss. Infinity Battle does exactly what it says on the tin. You endlessly run through standard stages with difficulty ramping up. Battle Panel is pretty decent. You're fighting to control a square grid. Basically, you're trying to activate tiles by sandwiching your opponent's colour between your own. It's got a bit of strategy to it, which is a nice change of pace. Then there's Battle Runner, which is easily the weakest of the bunch. It's a racing mode where you run laps, fight, and try to knock each other out. After time I try to jump over obstacles, the game would auto-lock into an enemy and completely mess up my jump movement. Sadly, it's frustrating more than anything. That said, my personal favourite minigame has got to be Battle Beach. You mash buttons to run, you're racing to a flag, and you have to time jump over obstacles. It's surprisingly addictive, it's a little lighthearted in a fun way, and it makes for a good 2-player mode. If I had to rank my favourite fighters, yeah, no surprise, it's all Final Fantasy VII characters. I wanted to say Sephiroth, but honestly I'm terrible at playing him, so third place goes to Vincent. He's a bit of a wild pick for a fighting game, but pulling out a gun just feels badass, and his flying kick combos are pretty slick. Second place is Tifa. She's one of the few characters who naturally fits into a fighting game, and she just feels right. Fast, aggressive, and really fun to play. And number 1 easily is Cloud. There's just something so fun about pulling out the Buster Sword and tearing through enemies. I might have given it to Zack, but let's be real, he's a mirror fighter. He plays exactly the same as Cloud, which does make sense story-wise. Meanwhile, while the Ehrgeiz tournament is taking place, we've got Koji and Claire exploring the Forsaken Dungeon. Basically the RPG side of Ehrgeiz. And yeah, this is a game inside a game, it's kind of insane. So this is a procedurally generated 21-floor dungeon with a different layout every time you play. And I've got to say, there's actually a surprising amount of enemy variety here. Each floor ramps up in difficulty, introducing tougher enemies as you go, so it really feels like you're progressing. Eventually you do start seeing recolored enemies, but even then there's a pretty wild mix. You've got demons, dragons, dinosaurs, bears, penguins, crocodiles. It's like a full-on safari down there. No idea how any of them ended up in this dungeon, but I respect the sheer variety. It's a bit of a shame that the intro dialogue is only in Japanese with no English dub, but once you're in, the core loop is solid. You're mapping out each floor as you explore, and while the rooms themselves aren't super complex, there's still a nice sense of discovery. It has a surprisingly moody, almost oppressive atmosphere that gives the dungeon a real sense of weight, and the dungeon's theme transforms as you delve deeper, which keeps things feeling fresh. It feels a little clunky but charming. Different weapon types have different animations and combos. Certain enemies will take more or less damage depending on weapon types. You can also charge your attack button for a special move. You You've also got the option to equip materia and cast spells. Instead of a traditional mana bar, spells use a currency system, which is an interesting twist. As you go deeper, you'll find powerful materia like flare, freeze, and trine. Some enemies are really resistant to physical damage too, so that's where magic becomes essential. There's also a pretty harsh risk-reward design baked in. If you die, you drop all your gear and switch to your secondary character, well, at least on normal mode. If you can make it back to where you died, you can recover everything, including your original character, but if you die again before that, game over. It can be really tense or just straight up frustrating, especially when enemies or spells lock you down. On top of that, there is a survival system. You've got a food meter, and if you don't eat, you'll starve and start taking damage over time. But here's the cool part, different foods affect your stat growth. For example, eat more meaty protein-based foods and you'll gain more attack power when you level up. While keeping fed can feel like a chore, the stat growth is a really nice touch. And I guess that technically now makes Ehrgeiz a fighting brawler survival roguelike RPG. You gotta respect just how ambitious and insane this game is. You can always pick up some food in town. Outside the dungeon there's a small town where you can stock up, sell loot and repair gear. It's pretty simple, but it has a nice cozy vibe that works well as a break from the dungeon. As you go deeper, you'll find stronger weapons and armor, and you will need them because enemies scale up fast. There are bosses scattered throughout too, though most of them boil down to hit and run tactics rather than anything too complex. One thing I didn't love was equipment durability. I actually had moments where my weapon broke while I was surrounded by enemies. I did have backups in my inventory, but you can't open the menu in combat to equip them. Running away wasn't always an option, with doors locking behind you and traps, and design oversight like that definitely makes it feel like a product of its time. So this time I made it my mission to fully complete the Forsaken Dungeon. I've never done it before. I made it all the way to floor 21, fought through a series of bosses, took down this fire dragon, and then I discovered there's an unavoidable cave-in that instantly kills your character. You're then forced to finish the game as your secondary character, and because I barely used Claire, I had to go back, rerun most of the dungeon, level up again, and grind for gear. Honestly, this was easily the most frustrating part of my entire Ehrgeiz experience. I was all excited to fight the final boss and beat this for the first time, but I had to replay most of the game first, and there wasn't exactly much of an ending, just a game over screen. So, Ehrgeiz is a deeply experimental game, and across the board it feels rough around the edges but undeniably charming. It's a game that never entirely commits. You can feel it constantly pull between two ideas, never fully realising either the fighting brawler game or the RPG to their full potential. But at the same time, that split identity is exactly what makes it memorable. There's a real sense of ambition here, even when it stumbles, even when it frustrates. And then you layer in the Final Fantasy VII fan service here, the characters, the limit breaks, the music, and it adds just enough nostalgia to carry it even further. It's a shame the original cast never got a chance to evolve, because there are some genuinely strong ideas here that never get fully explored. I think a lot of people came to Ehrgeiz for Final Fantasy VII, but stayed for the Forsaken Dungeon. That said, there are definitely moments where the design feels dated or outright punishing, and for me, that final stretch, being forced to replay large portions of the dungeon, really undercut what should have been a stronger finish. I went back and forth on this, but I'm landing on a C. It's messy, occasionally frustrating, but undeniably unique, wildly ambitious, and strangely unforgettable. There's just something about Ehrgeiz that just lingers with you. Next up, plan is to dive into Final Fantasy XIV's latest update. In the meantime, feel free to check out my return to Dragon Age Origins, my top 10 most emotional moments in Final Fantasy, or my big review of World of Warcraft Midnight. Have a good one.